we're going to sand, and then we're going to do the vinyl and sand some more. And then I'm going to use some wood filler, some of these spots, sand some more. And then we'll do the decals. You know, I'll probably also clean this out. Probably won't clean it out on video, but it's pretty gross inside there. One of the tools I forgot to mention in a previous video is like a blower rather than a vacuum. So you can use a blower to get in here with this, and then I'll go through it with a paintbrush, because paintbrush is pretty great. Should clean that out quite a bit. And since I'm sanding, I'm going to use some gloves. Just use some gloves. It's okay to put on gloves. You can use gloves. You don't even have to tighten them, but just put on some gloves, because splinters are no good and there's no reason to get splinters. So I have 120 grit sandpaper. I don't know what kind of sandpaper I need, but the 120 grit is going to be great. So just going to go over this in a coarse way. Not going to get into any parts here. Just go over it so that it's not so rough, because it's got some leftover roughness from the decal coming off. No big deal. So. Okay, that's how long that takes, and it's so much better already. So great. So I'm gonna speed this up. We'll go over the rest of it. Cool, so it's all cleaned off, sanded off, cleaned off. You know, here I am preaching about gloves. I probably would have been okay to wear eye protection and a mask, but you know, that took a whole 3 minutes, so not that big of a deal. So anyways, what I was thinking about doing here is I have this stuff here called plastic wood. It's probably not the best thing to use, even though that's literally what it's made for, but you can also use Bondo, which I tend not to use because it seems a bit much. We may end up using it on the corners and things up on the cab, but I typically don't use Bondo. So we're gonna try to just stick some of this in here with just a little putty knife. Let's just grab some with our fingers and see how it goes. I used this on my Miss Pac-Man a long time ago when I was working on it. Look at that, it's literally the same color. Anyways, you just kind of put that on there like that. Scrape it off. Not a big deal. It's very dusty, like, you know, you can see the consistency of it after it comes off of there. I can take some more and jam it in this corner right here. Okay. This is the part of working on these machines that I'm not as familiar with. I'm better at the mechanical bits. Working on the coin doors, painting, monitors to some extent. But, you know, and the control panels, controls, those kinds of things. But I figure a while back I was not super comfortable with like even taking a monitor out of the machine. You know, like unbolting it and taking it out of the machine was frightening to me. And so I did some research and made myself feel more comfortable about doing that. And there's a huge gouge in here. That's not from me. I didn't do it. Made myself feel more comfortable by learning about you know, what needs to happen when you're dealing with a CRT, and how to work on them safely and what the parts of it are and what they do. And I got myself a test pattern generator and a discharge probe and some electronic or electric crimping tools and crimps and things that I showed you, so I'm not worried about breaking connections or accidentally severing wires, because now I know that I can fix that stuff. So now I'm not nearly as worried about that. So what I figure, why I'm talking about this, is if I do this type of thing more, even if I'm not doing the best job, I'm learning and trying to improve my overall skills with dealing with these machines, and it'll get better over time. Maybe I'll start using Bondo, who knows? But for now, that's totally fine. There's no more gouge in there. The sticker's going to cover it all up anyways. So if we move on over to the front here, this is pretty reasonable. There's this one down here. We'll do that one. How do we do that? Let's do it. I don't know. Let's move this over here. And we'll do it over here. Okay, we'll do it right there. So this corner is the worst, but this was already like this in our walk around video that we did initially. This had this big chunk out of it from for whatever reason from a long time ago, or even from the last guy that owned this, who knows. This wood is so crappy. I mean, this wood's nice, but this appears to have some other layer of crappier wood on top of it, and that's what chips. And this wood filler is kind of lame. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not digging it very much. I've just never really been a big Bondo guy. But this stuff really doesn't seem like it wants to stick to the wood. So we're learning stuff while we're doing these videos. And that's okay. This corner is pretty mangled. So I'm wondering if I can just kind of build it up, and then once it dries, we can sand it later. So maybe we'll try that. Maybe we'll just kind of jam a bunch in here, and then we'll come back out tomorrow and we'll see if we can sand it to shape. So we'll try that. We'll just kind of jam some in there and try to sand it later. There we go. Not that much. Not that much. All right. Yeah, that's fine for now. The front is okay. This other side here was kind of rough, I think, when I was working on it. This side. So let's go back this way. I'll move this around here again. These are more like surface gouges here from my knife. So maybe these will be more of a better application for this stuff. Let's see. So we've got a pretty good one right here. Okay, I'm just filling that in, making it go away. There, and we'll sand the rest later. Seems like that's what this wants to do. Maybe Bondo's better for like corners and stuff. This stuff is not very sticky to start with, but it does it. So maybe when it dries, it'll behave better. I don't really remember what I actually used it on the Miss Pac-Man. I think it was like the back down by the hinges where it folds open. There we go. We'll go with that. And remember, this stuff's going to be covered up by stickers when you're done, so it's not really anything to get super duper worried about. All sands off anyways. If you really wanted to get that gouge back, you could just sand it all off again. Okay, so what I wanted to do also was just like at the same time here, why don't we try to apply this vinyl, since this side that's let's jam some in there too. That's kind of visible if you really try on the machine. This is the part that faces the actual cab from the back side of the control panel, but I don't know. We've already got this stuff out here, so let's just try to jam some in there. I don't know. Doesn't seem like it wants to do that either. We'll just put some in there and we'll see what happens when it dries out. Okay. Oops. Okay. I want to be done with that. So let's be done with that. So like I showed you before, I have this roll of vinyl here. Let me get myself a nice sharp razor. Okay, so what I'm hoping for, I haven't tried yet, is that this is the same height. It is. Yay. So what I'm hoping we can do, unfortunately I just put that on there, but we'll go from this direction. What I was hoping we could do is basically just cut this, you know, cut about an inch of it off, 2 inches of it off here, have a little bit of over, and then we'll just cut it out after we apply it. So I'm thinking I might even just use scissors, maybe just to go down it, because it doesn't need to be perfect. I also need to get that off there. Grab some scissors. So I was really concerned about this back corner here, which you'll basically never see unless you stand on your head to look at the machine. Once this all gets sanded out of here, you could always spray paint that again. Appears that that's all that they did with this initially. So, and look, there's a little tiny bit of gum left on here. Somebody put gum on this machine in a couple of different places. Good, there was no gum on here. Okay.